They say blood is thicker than water, but what if the blood running through your veins has always wanted you to bleed? My name is Laura, and I come from what they call a blended family. But calling it that makes it sound warm, cooperative, safe. My childhood was none of those things. I was the product of my mother's second marriage. Her first husband died young, leaving behind a daughter, Sarah, my half-sister. Then Mom met my dad. They married, and a year later, I came into the world. To outsiders, it looked like a picture-perfect home. 2 parents, 2 daughters, a home, a family business. But inside those walls, love was unevenly distributed, and I was always left scraping for what little was left. Mom owned a modest house, passed down from her late husband, and ran a small sewing factory. When she married my dad, she asked him to help manage it. He handled the finances, she took care of operations, and together they grew it into something successful. I overheard them one night, thinking I was asleep. I hope the girls will take over one day. My mom said, "Laura's got such a creative eye." My dad added, "And Sarah's brilliant with numbers." But Sarah had different plans. She never let me forget that everything in our lives, from the house to the business, down to the forks we used at dinner, came from her side of the family. "This is my house," she'd snarl, standing in front of her bedroom door like a gatekeeper. "You're only here 'cause your dad mooches off my mom." I didn't understand her cruelty back then. I just wanted to play with her toys or borrow a pencil so I could draw. But every time I reached for something, she'd snatch it away. "That's mine," she'd hiss. "My real dad bought it before he died. You can't touch it." Mom tried to mediate. "Sarah, honey, that's not nice. Laura's your sister." But Sarah would roll her eyes and snap. "Half-sister," spitting the words like poison. And Dad. He'd just pat my head and say, "Ignore her." But how could I? One afternoon, I found some colored pencils in the living room like a treasure to a kid who loved to draw. I was sketching the most beautiful dress designs in my head, lost in that magical world of creativity. Then she stormed in. "Those are mine," she screamed, yanking the pencils from my hands and tearing up my drawings as I stared in horror. I ran to Mom in tears. Mom wrapped her arms around me tightly and stormed into Sarah's room. "That's enough," she yelled. "You will not treat your sister this way." But nothing changed. Sarah always found new ways to remind me I wasn't welcome. As we grew older, my parents tried everything, to even the playing field, buying us matching clothes, giving the same gifts, but it was never enough for Sarah. She'd still find reasons to accuse them of favoritism. "Laura's sweater is softer," she'd sneer. "Her necklace has more jewels." In Sarah's twisted view, I was the intruder, an outsider stealing what was rightfully hers. When I was 10, my parents sold the old house and moved us into a bigger one. I was thrilled to finally have my own room. "This is amazing," I squealed, spinning in the empty space. Sarah appeared in the doorway, her face stormy. "Don't get too comfortable," she said coldly. "This house belongs to me and Mom. You're just a guest." Even in our new home, I was still the outcast. One night, I overheard my parents speaking in hushed tones again. "I don't know what to do anymore." Mom sighed. "I've tried everything with Sarah," Dad responded. "Maybe we should get her some help, a therapist." So they did. Sarah started going to weekly sessions, but instead of helping, it only seemed to fuel her resentment. "Oh, so now I'm crazy," she yelled after one appointment. "You just want to fix me so precious Laura can have her perfect little life." I wanted to scream. My life isn't perfect, not with you in it. But I said nothing. Arguing with Sarah was like throwing stones into a hurricane. Her victim complex only intensified with age. Everything was someone else's fault. She'd sulk and rant. "You're all against me. You owe me for everything I've been through." Eventually, I learned to retreat. I hid in my room, spent time at friends' houses anywhere but near her. When she finally graduated and left for college, it was like a curse had been lifted. Even Mom said, "Maybe some time away will do her good." For the first time in years, I could breathe. I threw myself into art and design, spending hours sketching new ideas. Mom noticed. She began bringing home fabric scraps from the factory. "You've got a real talent, Laura," she said, smiling proudly as I turned bits of cloth into tiny masterpieces. For once, I felt like I was more than just Sarah's annoying shadow. After high school, I got accepted into a design program in another city. It was a dream come true. The night before I left, Mom and Dad sat me down. "We're so proud of you," Mom said tearfully. "We hope you'll consider coming back to work with us after graduation," Dad added. I nodded, but in truth, I couldn't wait to be free. I didn't want to return to a town haunted by Sarah's bitterness. College was everything I hoped for and more, and it was there I met Jason. He was older, charming, and working on his master's in business. Our paths crossed literally when I spilled my latte on him at a cafe. What should have been a disaster turned into a 3-hour conversation. He made me laugh. He asked about my sketches like he actually cared. Soon, we were inseparable. By the time graduation neared, Jason already had a job lined up. "What do you think about staying here together?" he asked one night over dinner. My heart soared. I'd just landed a junior designer position with an up-and-coming fashion house. The idea of building a life away from all the family chaos sounded like heaven. But I had to tell my parents. Jason and I took a trip back home. I was nervous about introducing him, especially with Sarah around. But, surprisingly, the visit went well. Mom and Dad adored him, and Sarah. She was civil, polite, even. No jabs, no jealousy. For the first time, I thought maybe we could start over dinner. I told them my plans to stay in the city. Mom smiled, though I saw the disappointment in her eyes. Dad cleared his throat. "What if you opened a branch of the company in your city? You could lead the design side." I was stunned. It was generous, ambitious, and tempting. Before we left, Sarah pulled me aside. "Hey, I know things haven't always been great between us," she said awkwardly, "but maybe I could visit you sometime." I hesitated, but nodded. Maybe she'd changed. When she showed up months later, suitcase in hand and grinning like a reformed saint, I almost believed it, until dinner that night, when she casually dropped, "You should come home. We could work together in the family business." I nearly choked. "I just started my career here," I replied, confused. "Bring Jason," she said with a wave. "There's opportunity back home." I shook my head. Mom and Dad actually suggested I open a branch here. That's when I saw it. A flash in her eyes. Jealousy. Rage. The old Sarah. But it vanished just as quickly. And then she said something that still sends chills down my spine. "Well, if you won't come home, maybe I could." You know that moment when your whole world tilts, when everything you trusted, everything you built, collapses like a house of cards and the people who lit the match are the ones you called family. That was me. And the worst part, I let her in. Sarah had asked to stay with me longer, claiming we had so much to catch up on. And I said yes. Maybe it was the wine. Maybe it was that tiny, foolish part of me that still hoped we could be real sisters. To my surprise, it wasn't a disaster. Sarah cooked, cleaned, even made me laugh. We'd stay up late, talking about the past, our childhood, our parents, even the stupid fights we used to have, and, for the first time in my life, I felt like I had a sister. One night, over another bottle of wine, she floated the idea again, us opening the new branch together. "You focus on design. I'll handle the business. We'd make a great team." She clinked her glass against mine with a smile I now realize was rehearsed. "Still," I said, "let me think about it." My guard wasn't entirely down. Not yet, but it was slipping. As the days passed, Jason started coming over more, and Sarah and Jason seemed to get along better than I could have imagined. Too well. In hindsight, they'd be laughing in the kitchen, deep in some conversation, totally at ease with each other. And I was happy, genuinely happy to see the two most important people in my life bonding. Jason and I picked a wedding date 6 months away. I poured my soul into planning it. I designed the invitations, stressed over the menu, obsessed over color palettes. Sarah was by my side every step of the way. supportive and enthusiastic. She even suggested ideas for the reception. Meanwhile, Jason and I decided to open the family business branch after the wedding. Everything was lining up perfectly. And then, the call came. Laura. My dad's voice crackled through the phone. "It's your mother. She's not well." My stomach dropped. "She's been hiding how bad she feels. But it's serious. I'm struggling to handle everything: the house, the business. I didn't even hesitate. I'm coming home. When I told Sarah, she barely looked up from her planner. Wish I could come, but I've got some important meetings I can't miss." It stung, but I let it go. Back home, the reality hit hard. Mom looked hollow. The spark that had always lit up her eyes was dim. The diagnosis came fast: a tumor. Surgery was urgent. I threw myself into action, cooking, cleaning, helping Dad at the factory, all while working remotely when I could. I barely slept. I barely breathed. But eventually, the surgery was a success. Mom started to recover, and I finally exhaled. Jason and I kept in touch at first. Daily video calls, little smiles. "How's your mom?" he'd ask. "Better," I'd reply, though my voice cracked with exhaustion. "How's Sarah? Everything okay?" He'd chuckle and say yes. But over time, the calls dwindled, then stopped. My texts went unread. My calls rang out. Silence. Deafening, nauseating silence. I told myself he was just busy, maybe stressed, but deep down, my gut was screaming something else. I flew home, unannounced. I didn't tell Sarah, didn't tell Jason. I imagined Jason's face lighting up when he saw me at the door, but that's not what happened. My key still worked. The apartment was quiet, too quiet, until I heard it a giggle. From our bedroom. I didn't pause. I wish I had. But I didn't. I flung the door open like a madwoman. There they were, Jason and Sarah, naked, twisted up in our sheets. The air left my lungs. The world stopped. I couldn't move, couldn't think. Then I screamed. "What the hell?" They jumped, startled but not ashamed. If anything, they looked relieved. "Laura," Sarah said, casually pulling the sheet around her like it was her room. "We didn't expect you back so soon. You didn't expect? Are you out of your damn mind?" That's all you have to say. Jason looked uncomfortable. Sarah didn't flinch. "Look, sis, these things happen. Sis." The word was acid on my tongue. "Jason and we're in love," she said. "In love? Like that explained it all? You've known each other for, what, a few months?" "Sometimes you just know," Jason mumbled, reaching for Sarah's hand like I wasn't even there. "You didn't mean for this to happen." I scoffed. Sarah smiled. Actually smiled. "You should be happy for us. We were hoping you'd understand. Maybe even let us use your wedding plans." Well, everything's already paid for," she said sweetly. "It seems a shame to waste it. We could celebrate our engagement instead. I don't remember leaving. I don't remember the flight. I just remember collapsing in my childhood bed, sobbing until my body went numb. Mom and Dad found me like that, sat beside me for hours until I could speak. When I finally told them everything, Dad's face turned red with fury. Mom. She looked like something inside her had shattered. Dad called Sarah right then. Her voice was shrill, loud enough for me to hear through the phone. "Of course you're taking her side. You always have." Well, guess what? I'm the one he chose. How does it feel? Laura, Dad's voice was ice. "Sarah, if you go through with this, you're no longer part of this family." Silence. Then fine. I don't need you anyway. I've got Jason now. Click. Mom pulled me close, her frail body shaking with sobs. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart. So sorry." But I wasn't that little girl begging Sarah to share her toys anymore. I was a grown woman who'd just been gutted by the two people I trusted most. The days that followed were a blur. Some days I stayed in bed. Other days, I was on the phone with lawyers, trying to reclaim every dollar I'd spent on that wedding. And then came the call that stopped me cold. "Laura." "It's Margaret, Jason's mother." I almost hung up, but something in her voice, broken, devastated, made me pause. I don't know what to say. We're so sorry. We thought of you like a daughter. We can't believe Jason and Sarah did this. She didn't just apologize. She acted. Days later, a check arrived in the mail, reimbursing me for every cent I'd spent on the wedding. And then, I made a decision. I wasn't going back to the city. Not yet. There were too many ghosts there. Instead, I turned to my parents and asked, "Can I stay here a while? Maybe work for the company?" Dad smiled. "We were hoping you'd say that." So I did. I channeled my grief into purpose. Every stitch, every fabric swatch, every design I created became my revenge, a declaration. Look what you lost. We didn't go to Sarah and Jason's wedding. I spent that day locked in my office, working on a youth clothing line I'd been sketching in my darkest moments. Months passed. The line exploded in popularity. Within a year, I helped the company generate $1 million more in revenue. Sarah and Jason. They didn't exist in my world anymore. 3 years passed in a blur of success. My name was on the lips of every major designer in the region. Our family business was booming, and I had rebuilt myself from the ashes of their betrayal. Then, one warm summer evening, as I laughed with my parents over dinner, a shadow returned. Some wounds fade. Others scar so deeply they become part of who you are. I thought I had finally buried the pain Sarah caused me, that I'd sealed off that chapter of my life for good. But then, the doorbell rang. Dad frowned. "Are we expecting anyone?" I shook my head, an eerie sense of dread twisting in my gut. Mom opened the door and the past walked in. "Well, well," Sarah said, her voice drenched in venom. "Look at this cozy little family dinner." I froze. My stomach clenched. My hand gripped the table until my knuckles turned white. She pushed past Mom like she still belonged, like she hadn't set fire to everything we once had. "Glad to see you're all doing so well without me," she sneered, her eyes darting around the room with a sickening mix of anger and envy. "Sarah," I said, rising from my seat, "what are you doing here?" She looked awful pale, gaunt, eyes shadowed by exhaustion and bitterness. A ghost of the woman who'd once stolen my fiancé and my future. "Oh, just thought I'd drop by," she snapped. "See how the other half lives, especially now that I'm newly single." Dad's jaw tightened. "What happened to Jason?" Sarah laughed, but there was no joy in it. Turns out once a cheater, always a cheater. He ran off with his secretary. Her voice cracked under the weight of humiliation. Ironic, huh? And it was. God, it was poetic. I didn't say anything for a moment, just looked at her. I didn't feel pity. I didn't feel triumph. What I felt was something colder. Sharper justice. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, though we both knew I didn't mean it. "But why are you here?" Her face hardened. "I want my share of the business. I'm family, too. Remember." Dad stood up, voice calm but unshakable. "Sarah, you gave up your claim the moment you betrayed your sister. You're not getting anything. You can't do this," she screamed, her mask of control shattering. "You can't just erase me like I never existed." Mom stepped forward, frail but steady. "We already have," she said gently. "You're disinherited. Please leave." For a heartbeat, I thought Sarah might lash out, her fists clenched, her eyes wild, but then she just spat her last poison. "This isn't over," she hissed before storming out into the night. I hoped that would be the end of it. I was wrong. Days later, I was working in my office when I heard shouting from the lobby. I rushed downstairs and there she was, Sarah, standing in the middle of our open-plan workspace, screaming. "You're all being lied to," she shrieked. "These people are thieves. That company is mine." Our employees looked on in horror. Some froze. Others tried to shield themselves from the chaos. I didn't flinch. I grabbed the phone and calmly dialed the police. "Yes, I need officers at Fashion Forward Designs immediately. We have a violent individual trespassing and causing a disturbance." She fought back when security approached, clawing, yelling, refusing to leave. But that wasn't even the worst of it. Over the next few days, she escalated. She tried to break into our parents' house. She shattered our windows. And then, she tried to set the front door on fire. I stood on the front porch the next morning, staring at the charred black marks left by her madness. That was the final straw. With heavy hearts, we filed for a restraining order. The judge granted it without hesitation. Sarah was banned from coming near me, my parents, or any of our properties. And just like that, it was official. Sarah was no longer part of our world, not just emotionally, not just symbolically, legally. After the hearing, I sat in my office alone, watching the city lights flicker beneath a sky painted with dusk. I thought about everything, what I lost, what I gained, and how far I'd come. I wasn't just the girl who'd been betrayed. I was a woman who had rebuilt herself from the ground up. My name was known in the fashion world now. My designs were featured in magazines. Buyers called me. Clients requested me. I'd taken the ashes of heartbreak and sewn them into gold, and love that could wait. Jason had shattered something fragile inside me. Not just trust, but the idea of sharing my life with someone. I wasn't bitter. I was cautious. I was healing. And for the first time in a long time, I felt whole. I poured my heart into my work, into beauty, into resilience, into art, because that's what I do. I take broken things, and I make something beautiful. This story offers a powerful reminder that betrayal doesn't have to break us. It can become the very fuel that drives our transformation. At its core, it's about reclaiming your identity when everything you thought was stable crumbles. Laura's journey shows that even when those closest to us inflict the deepest wounds, we still have the power to rise not out of vengeance, but through the quiet strength of rebuilding ourselves. It's tempting to define ourselves by what others take from us: love, trust, opportunity, but healing begins when we start defining ourselves by what we choose to become afterward. The story also highlights the difference between family by blood and family by loyalty. While Sarah and Jason betrayed Laura in the most intimate ways, her parents' unwavering support and the love of her community helped her reclaim her sense of self-worth. We often chase closure from those who hurt us, but sometimes closure is the life we build in spite of them. It's also a cautionary tale about envy, how unresolved jealousy can consume someone and eventually lead to self-destruction. Sarah wanted everything Laura had, but when she finally got it, she lost herself in the process. Laura, on the other hand, didn't just survive. She thrived by staying true to her values and investing her pain into her passion. The story teaches us that we don't need to be defined by our darkest moments. Instead, we can use them as stepping stones to a stronger, wiser version of ourselves. Let go of what tried to destroy you and choose to become someone even they can't ignore. Because at the end of the day, the best revenge isn't retaliation. It's rising so high they can no longer reach you. Thanks for watching this powerful story of betrayal, resilience, and redemption. If this video gave you something to think about, inspired you, or made you feel seen, go ahead and comment 1 down below to let us know you got value from it. Don't forget to like the video if it moved you. Subscribe to the channel for more incredible stories like this, and share it with someone who might need a reminder that no matter how deep the betrayal, healing and success are always possible. We'd also love to hear from you. What are your thoughts about this story? Have you ever experienced something similar? Drop your feelings and reflections in the comments. We read every one of them. Until next time, take care of yourself and remember, the strongest people aren't those who never fall, they're the ones who rise again and again.